Hello, everyone. Welcome to Grid Live Pre-Race. We got Joe Sandiego, myself here, Isha Azim with us, and Joshua Birch from Joshua Birch Motorsports. Big thank you to our Patreon subscribers calling the show, Mark, Robin, and David, our newest one, for investing in the Grid Network each and every month. You too can invest in the Grid Network, and of course, there's also Buy Me a Coffee as well. Amber, a big thank you for the coffee for Isha on her debut weekend. I encourage everyone, if you want to buy a cup of coffee, especially for any one of our Grid Network team members, feel free to do so. Link in the video description and our website, gridrankin.com, where you can see all of our team members right there. Isha, Josh, an eventful weekend so far at the Hungarian ring. First day, Sergio Perez crashed out very early, setting his first fast lap in the free practice one. I thought it was going to be a big story, but he seems to have recovered, got to Q3 for the first time since Miami. Verstappen, he didn't get really set a fast lap, but then the second practice, he was only 11th fastest. So we started thinking, did everyone caught up to Red Bull? Then qualifying, which mirrored what we saw in that third practice, was Lewis Hamilton out front. Lewis Hamilton on the pole for the first time in 100, his 104th pole over 30 races since his last pole, and then Max Verstappen second place. So we know the history between these two drivers. Max Verstappen is going to be on that dirty line, and you got Lando Norris in third on that clean line. So I got an idea that this could be a very exciting first corner between those two and potentially Lando Norris. Weather, that's not going to be an issue. It's forecast to be sunny, and we know this is a very hard place to pass. So that start is going to be very critical. Isha, starting with you. Is this the golden opportunity for everyone to pounce to snap Red Bull's winning streak? And is this everyone catching up, or the nature of the Hungarian ring circuit?
I think it's a combination of everything. The nature of the Hungarian ring is very specific, where it doesn't allow a lot of drivers to cut in front of others. So I think with the setup that we've seen in the qualifications, where Lewis Hamilton came in first, I think it's a great opportunity for him to take the pole position and finally break Red Bull's winning streak. And I also think that we have to watch the weather because as we've seen the past 2 days, the weather plays a big role in how the tires perform and how the cars perform and who we're going to see win tomorrow. So I think it's a combination of everything, but I think this is a great opportunity for McLaren and for Mercedes with Lewis Hamilton to finally take the lead.
They keep that pole position streak alive. They've only lost it once in 2019 to Max Verstappen, but Red Bull historically don't do too well here. It's always been a track that Ferrari or Mercedes have been quicker at. This weekend, the new upgrades that have been brought to the Red Bull, they haven't worked at this track. We knew there was going to be one bogey circuit. We knew there's going to be somewhere where the armor would get just chipped a little bit, and it seemed to be here. Practice one, Perez threw away his upgrades by crashing into the wall. That brought out the red flag, and that really stopped everybody finding the limits in that first session. So it was all done in practice too. That then all put in as well with the longer runs for the medium compound tires. Everyone was just doing so many runs in practice too. Then this morning in practice 3 was the first time we thought, okay, let's see what they've got. And it was surprising because Zhou was up there. We saw Bottas up there. Verstappen didn't top the session. He was 2 tenths off of Hamilton in the end as well in that third session. And it was just like, well, everyone's gone out there. They're all out there on medium and soft tires, and nobody else is improving. No one's going for the full run. So they've struggled a lot this weekend, Red Bull. And then coming into qualifying, it was, again, we were saying it was a mess because they hadn't topped a session all weekend long with Verstappen. Q1 went to Zhou, Q2 went to Norris, and Q3 went to Hamilton. And Max was just like throwing everything around. He had a lap time deletion for track limits. He was complaining in practice this morning about how the rear of the car just wasn't setting up right, kept going out, and that was because of the wind. And that same wind, 1.4 kilometers, was down at turn 2 and 3. So it was unsettling the rear. And it's all down to the new upgrades that have been brought, I think, because they've gone for a slim pod. So the air intakes, along the drivers, the air intakes that we saw Mercedes have no side pods. The air intakes are the side pods. So Red Bull have gone thinner, really narrow thin, similar to what Ferrari are developing. And it's mucked up the rear suspension of the car. It really has. Adrian Newey's at the moment done something wrong. We'll see in the race tomorrow what it's like in race pace. But so far this weekend, it just has not worked. So it's the last big upgrade Red Bull could do this season with their limitations with the cost cap. And they've got it wrong. Now, do they revert back and risk being caught up by everybody else? Or do they stick with what they've got and be caught by everybody else? So they're in a catch-22 situation. I must admit, the one person who got it right, and I said I'd speak to you about it, Joe, was Adam. Adam said right from the start, he was on the qualifying commentary with me, and he said right from the start, Lewis Hamilton will have pole position today. He got it right. So I think surely he deserves like either half a point or a bonus point for that, because that was the call of the season. I did not expect Hamilton to get pole. I did not expect the shocking loss from Verstappen. And going into the race tomorrow, I think McLaren's have got the best race pace. I think Ferrari are poorer in places in the middle stint. They're quicker on the softs rather than the medium and the hards. And Red Bull, I can't tell. They've got no pace. So this could be very interesting. I think tomorrow's going to end up with either Hamilton winning or Norris winning, one of the two, because Piastri's fourth of the grid, and he was the fastest of all in that middle sector. It's going to be good. And I think, there's going to be a lot looking to take Red Bull's stick away from them.
It's going to be really interesting. Adam there saying, thank you, Josh, because definitely if you could go out there and call who you think is going to get the pole, and especially Lewis Hamilton, not exactly having the greatest season to his standards, what an effort. And we know this track has produced first-time winners from Fernando Alonso, Esteban Ocon. Lando Norris, he is with McLaren. They have the most wins out of any team at this track. They seem really fast. He could really capitalize, especially you have Lewis Hamilton, Max Verstappen racing each other too hard to the point where they're both out of contention. So a lot. And what was really interesting, they said this is the second longest consecutive track behind Monza, and it's going to be around to 2030, so the Hungarian ring. I feel it's always had a little bit of a reputation of, it's not the most exciting race and you can't really pass. But when it comes to the strategy and with these F1 cars lately, this race has become more and more unpredictable, and I think the Hungarian ring worthy of staying around for quite some time. And this race tomorrow, I think, is going to be definitely worthy of everyone's attention, because Red Bull, I'm not convinced they're going to be the easy favorite. I don't think they're going to be dominating this race. But another team with Red Bull, AlphaTauri, Daniel Ricciardo, he advanced to Q2, his first race. Yuki Tsunoda did not advance. So already people are comparing that this was a right move. So Joshua, starting with you, does this validate AlphaTauri releasing Nick de Vries, and does this put Yuki under pressure?
I think there's two things I want to get. I think, yes, it does definitely put Yuki Tsunoda under pressure, because this is a weekend he had to perform with Danny Rick coming in. Danny Rick's been out of the car for 7 months. He does not have the capability to be able to put in these fast times, but he's clicked with the car. He did. It's the same Honda engine he had in the Red Bull. So he's got the pace, he's got the time. He knows how to get the most out of the cars. He's done enough data now in the simulation and the Silverstone test. I don't think it's validating losing Nick de Vries yet. I still think that's a harsh call. I haven't been on any Grid Network program since he got dropped, actually, so I'll give my piece on that. Is that I think it was a very harsh call to drop Nick de Vries before the middle half of the season. I think he needed a bit more time. That car is horrible to drive. It's the worst on the grid. It's got what just 2 points to the Constructors' Championship game. That's all by Yuki Tsunoda, getting them in Azerbaijan and Australia a point each with 10th. So it's the worst car on the grid. Ricciardo putting it P5. No, where is he? Where's Ricciardo on the grid? P13, I think. Let's have a look. Yeah, that's good memory. I wasn't even looking at the data. So he's P13 on the grid. That's a mega achievement. He out-qualified Tsunoda, who's down in 17th, and it was good. And I tell you what, the one driver I think better performed rather than Yuki Tsunoda. He's pretty much locked in. He'll have Liam Lawson as a teammate next year. The one driver who had to perform in qualifying and did so was Sergio Perez. He had to get through, and he finished perfectly ahead and got into qualifying 3 for the first time in 6 races. So yeah, he had to perform. He had to make sure he wasn't out-qualified by Ricciardo. All happened perfectly. So It was a weird qualifying with having to use hard tyres, Q1, Q2, mediums, Q3 softs. I would say wait until Spa on the Friday. Even that's not a real qualifying because it's a sprint weekend. So it's going to be hard to tell the long data on this one with Ricciardo. But they have thrown him in at the deep end for a reason. There was a reason he's gone in now, is because he gets to have a normal race weekend here in Hungary. Then he gets to try out the new sprint format next weekend. So he's better prepared coming back from the summer break, where I've heard things that Perez might be made way and Ricciardo goes up to the main team already, depending on how he does the next two races. So that's why it was critical for Perez to do well here today.
Yeah, so while this doesn't, in my opinion, exactly validate AlphaTauri's decision so far, I think it is too early to say anything. Daniel Ricciardo did perform better so far in the qualifying than Nick de Vries did at the last race at Silverstone. I believe he finished P17 and Daniel Ricciardo so far has P13. But I think we do have to wait until tomorrow to see exactly how he performs. So I believe it's too early to say whether AlphaTauri, made the right decision with Nick de Vries. But when it comes to the pressure that this puts on Yuki Tsunoda, I believe that he should have performed better this qualifying so far. And I think tomorrow he's definitely going to try harder because with Daniel Ricciardo coming in, there's a lot more pressure on him to perform better, especially with, Nick de Vries being released. So I think he's definitely going to try harder tomorrow.
Yuki Tsunoda, I think, has to feel a little bit of pressure. Your new teammate comes in, very popular among fans. We know anything that has AlphaTauri and Daniel Ricciardo's number, they're going to be selling like hotcakes to the fans. So it's a big marketing move, I think, having Daniel Ricciardo in that car. Nick de Vries was just struggling. We don't know exactly what's going on behind the scenes. And we've seen this in especially NASCAR, IndyCar even, where a driver, they might have a multi-year contract. They're let go after a few races because they didn't perform. We don't see that here in F1, but we know with Red Bull how they are pressuring all the drivers to perform. I think this has to be short-term validation that, okay, Daniel Ricciardo got in, outperformed his teammate. Daniel Ricciardo could score a point, even if it's 10th place. He's done half of what Yuki Tsunoda has done in his first race weekend. I think Yuki has a lot of pressure, and that's really interesting, Josh, what you mentioned about potentially down stepping up again to the main Red Bull team. Seems like Daniel Ricciardo might be thinking maybe I should have not exactly left Red Bull for Renault and then McLaren, but that's of course hindsight. One of the big things a lot of drivers thinking, I wish I had not done that. Track limits. You got something to say, Josh?
Just that when he left, remember to go to McLaren. Hindsight, it's definitely 2020.
2020. And then track limits, that really played havoc with a lot of drivers. Again, not as badly as we saw in Austria, but we had a messy situation as well too in qualifying Q1. You had a line of cars waiting to get the space in, taking up space. This is what George Russell said cost him, got him off to a rough start on his qualifying lap. When he was asked after qualifying, is there a gentleman's agreement when it comes to this? He said no, that there isn't. We know there was an investigation between Lance Stroll and Valtteri Bottas, particularly did Lance Stroll impede Valtteri Bottas this time. Now, Bottas still made it advance out of Q1 and further along. But Isha, starting with you, this isn't the first time we've seen this happen during qualifying, especially Q1. Does F1 need to set like a minimum speed so that way you don't have cars just crawling around the track during, especially Q1?
Yeah, so as a viewer and as a Formula One enthusiast, when you're seeing this happen during the practice sessions or the qualifiers of the races, it seems very frustrating. So I can't even imagine what the drivers are actually feeling like when it costs them a position or a place on the podium. So I definitely think that Formula One should set a minimum speed to prevent the cars from going so slow. But I also think that this would bring a lot of other questions onto the table, where if the drivers do go under the speed limit, then how exactly is that going to be treated? Will there be penalties given? And if so, what will the penalties look like? And then also it opens up the question of if there's accidents or crashes on the race, does that also count for following a specific speed limit? So I think that while Formula One should set one, I think it's also going to bring on a lot of other questions and concerns.
Let's bring in some comments as well that I believe have come up on the screen. All right, Foster says Russell should place the blame where it belongs. Mercedes strategist. Yeah, Russell was so annoyed in the press conference. You can see why, because he knew that the car had pace. He knew he could get up there and go challenge for front row, maybe even pole position looking forward. Now, it's interesting actually because F1 does have a minimum time that they have to get round as well, but it's very interesting. There's no minimum speed that you have to go at. And that, as you've been saying, that's the key point. There is a minimum time that you have to get round, but it only applies on in laps. So it doesn't apply on the out laps that you have to get round. It's only when you back off and come in, like there's a red flag or anything like that. And that is between the safety car lines 1 and 2. Now, safety car line 1, that is the normal, that is the pit entry line. So just on the entry to the pit lane, that's the pit entry line. Safety car line 2 is the pit exit lines. They're the two deltas. And the gap, you must go around the track within 1 minute and 31 seconds. That's the safety car lap time delta that they calculate on Fridays. But as you say, there is no minimum speed out there on the track for the last sector. And that's I think where we're seeing cars stopping and braking, because they can pound round that first sector, get the tyres nice and hot, and it's a 1 minute 16 lap, which means they can pound round on the out lap, get round in around about 1 minute 20, and then they've got 11 seconds to sort of block the last sector, and we start getting the traffic cones again. So I think you're both right. There needs to be, as well as the minimum time we've got, there needs to be minimum speed that you can't just fault on an out lap, and that needs to change that rule to both out lap and in lap instead of just the in lap, but it is now. So it is a bit of a change around, but it is dangerous, and we've nearly seen cars get wiped out. It even happened in Formula 3 qualifying as well, where we had cars back up in the last corner, and those on a hot lap were trying to steam through, and they almost clipped each other. It's a mess, and they never seem to learn. They didn't learn from Italy. They introduced the minimum time, didn't work because they still go slower. And they didn't learn from Formula 3 in Italy a couple of years ago. And where is it? Where we're in a couple of races' time? Oh, yeah, Italy. So it's just going to be an absolute mess. But we need minimum speed instead of minimum time.
Minimum speed, that would be something of a benefit, I think. I think, Isha, you brought up some great points. I think if there was anything, maybe 2024, just because with all those questions that could arise from such a move. Now, of course, 2024, potentially we're going to be seeing this qualifying tire allotment format, which was really interesting because with this, we only have 11 tires instead of 13 tires. The idea, less tire usage throughout the weekend. They said it added up to over 3,000 tires saved. And then, of course, for teams' cost and sustainability. But one of the things we saw, Q1, everyone was on hard tires. You couldn't switch. Q2, everyone was on the medium tires. And Q3, the soft tires. Now, some of the surprises, George Russell, 18th. But we also look at Carlos Sainz, did not advance to Q3. And then look at Alfa Romeo. Both cars in the top 10. Guanyu Zhou, starting 5th place. His best starting position ever in F1. AlphaTauri has to be feeling pretty good after this weekend. And at this track where passing is difficult, it could be up for some good points they need in the constructors. Josh, starting with you. Was this format a factor in the unpredictability of this weekend? Or is this just mainly the nature of this track?
I think it definitely gave us an advantage to have a good weekend because it unsettled everybody. And we definitely saw that in Q1. Q1 was completely unpredictable. Usually we stick on a set of mediums, or if you're feeling brave at the back of the field, you stick on a set of softs. But limiting everyone to the hards did kick up a fuss, and it's shaken up the grid just a little bit. Q2, it was the old format of where we stick on the mediums and you can go out again. But nowadays they've started sneaking softs on at the end of the runs. Q3 was pretty much normal because we don't run hards or mediums in there anyway. The mandatory tire in Q3 is a soft tire that gets saved in the set. So it was an okay run. I think mainly what this format has done is shake up the race for tomorrow in terms of tire sets available, because we saw in practice 3 and practice 2, they can't get the longevity out of the medium tire. So I think instead of a 1-stopper that they're planning it's going to be a 2-stop race with a possibility of a 3-stop. So that's how much they're limited, and they can't just go to a set of hards because they've used them all now. So we're going to see a medium and soft tyre race tomorrow, which is going to be very exciting for all of us to see. And I'm looking forward to it. I would like to see it on a weekend where practice one isn't washed out, because yesterday in practice one, they did 3 laps on the tyres, red flag came out, and then it was inters for the rest of it. And they used those tyres from practice one in practice 3 this morning. So it just needs a little bit of adaptation. And I think the next time we see it is going to be in Japan. So we'll probably get rained out there as well. So I think we need to have another weekend where we can try this in a hotter climate. Let's throw it in Qatar or Abu Dhabi or somewhere like that and see what it's like there, because I think we'll have a much better situation. And personally, I thought that was one of the best qualifyings we've seen of the season and in a very long time. And it's down to the fact that everyone was on exactly the same tyres, and it created a lot of interest and a lot of fun.
Yeah, I agree with Josh. I think this was one of the best qualifying sessions that we've seen in a while. And I think that with the alternate tire allocation, coming into the weekend, there were a few drivers that commented on it or criticized it a little bit, one of them being Lewis Hamilton. But then you see the position that he got today. He got pole position. So I think that the alternate tire allocation does lead to a little bit of the unpredictability that we've seen so far with the practice sessions and the qualifying. But I think that it's also due to the nature of the track. And I think that, as Josh said, it's going to take the drivers some time to get used to it. So just testing out this format on different races and different weathers and conditions, I think that's just going to help them. But so far, I think this really helped keep everyone on the same set of tires. And, it helps keep everything even and fair.
It really was interesting seeing everyone on the same tires, all the actions that we're seeing on the track. This definitely, I think, one of the best qualifying sessions we've seen this year. This format, I think it's going to be really interesting to see how it develops more and more, and especially with the fans, because one of the things I found very interesting when Danica Patrick was interviewing Lewis Hamilton, Danica said, you were criticized this format, and right away we saw Lewis Hamilton, oh, I didn't mean that, I just meant this, and then, but we shouldn't take away the entertainment for the fans. And it's like, that's really easy to say after you win the pole. So I don't think he'll be saying that if he was, George Russell wouldn't be saying that right now. So
George is going to be in the debrief going, oh, this format, it doesn't work. We need to change back. All this. Lewis is going, I agree with you, by the way, secretly fist pumping under the table that he's got pole position as well. And it's trust Lewis. It's classic him, isn't it? He's truly back, isn't he, this weekend? Complain about the format, go win it. Oh, it's the best thing ever. What a car, what a team, best fans, best FIA. Oh, Michael, come here, give me a hug. It's all that. It's like, as soon as you start winning, you just all fade away. I've not been on Twitter yet, but I can imagine what Team LH are like right now. And I'm very much looking for it. If Lewis wins tomorrow, I guarantee you, if Lewis wins tomorrow, hashtag karma, hashtag revenge, and hashtag still I rise will be trending on Twitter.
It'll be really interesting to see what happens tomorrow. Of course, Hungarian Grand Prix tomorrow morning on the East Coast here, especially in the Pacific, and link in the video description to Joshua's first watch along for F1 Hungarian Grand Prix. Now, Josh, we know we have another big race weekend coming up, IndyCar. And it was the Hy-Vee doubleheader race weekend where we have 2 races and a very interesting qualifying format where your first lap sets the qualifying position for race 1, your second lap for race 2, and we have Will Power on the pole for both races. And here's the thing. Race 1, it's a Penske 1, 2, 3 with Scott McLaughlin and Joseph Newgarden. Race 2, Newgarden did not get a good lap, so he's further back, but it's McLaughlin in the second row. We know Newgarden is really fast in this track. We know Penske just seems to have something about the ovals. Will Power is winless this year. It's a Penske 1, 2, 3 race 1, and it's a Penske sweep likely this weekend.
I think it is. Just looking at it, 184. Let's just get that right. And that was on the other. I can't believe it. It's a stunning lap. It's a stunning testament to what the Penskes can do. And it just goes on with the running joke, isn't it? That they can't race at the home track in Indianapolis, but they can race at every other oval. Luckily, Newgarden disproved that this year by winning the 500 for the first time with Penske ownership as the brand name. But going into this weekend for IndyCar, we've been sort of guessing, haven't we? Because practice yesterday didn't really throw up anything interesting to talk about. It didn't really give us the right run around. Then coming into what we saw today in qualifying, it was a drying track that it was just getting faster and faster and faster. So it's mixed up the grid completely. So I've got a feeling tonight's race is going to be brilliant because tire strategies out the window, fuel windows are going to have to be calculated on brains. It is going to be spectacular. There's the starting grid alongside us, as you can see from the quality results. And I liked the format from lap 1 is race 1, lap 2 is race 2. Easy to get, but Penske 1, 2, 3, they've turned their engines up to 11, haven't they? And the biggest surprise for me was Palou being so far down, and actually Pato O'Ward. Not a great qualifying from him in the 2, and he was really good last year. And there's race 2.
Yeah. Palou, I feel, ovals, we knew this could be potentially everyone's opportunity to catch up on him. And I feel Honda in this racetrack, compared to the Chevrolets, seems to have a little bit of a disadvantage. But Pato O'Ward, 11th for race 2. I was just very surprised. He seems to be really good at the ovals. He's still winless, and I'm starting to wonder, okay, is there something where it might be a little bit of adjustment needed with that team? Because he has the pace traditionally, but it just seems like he's not getting the wins like many people thought. And I think his championship's so fading quickly, especially if he go winless in this series. But of course, we know Alex Palou, he's been getting wins, but he's going to have, I think, a very interesting race weekend as well here at Iowa. One last comment from the F1 discussion. Lewis Hamilton, the master of sandbagging, whether mental or physical. Sandbagging is just all part of the game, and Lewis Hamilton, other drivers, they'll do it to the best of their advantage. One driver, he has a big disadvantage here at Iowa. Jack Harvey, a 9th-place grid penalty for the contact on the race 1 at Toronto. Well, the only race in Toronto, but Toronto, first lap, contact crash. Yes, he went a little wide, but it looked like the car got loose. He had to chase it up 3 wide. I don't know if it's really reasonable to say, oh, you should have just backed off and lost even more positions on lap 1. Do you agree with this penalty for Jack Harvey? 9 places.
No, I don't. I think it's way too harsh for what was a racing incident. It shouldn't be the result. It was a racing incident at turn 1, and everybody was charging into a tight corner, cold tires, cold brakes, and you expected to stop quite hard. It's not a good idea to put him that far down on the grid. 9 places is huge, especially at an oval as well. He's right now in the mid pack of the 27 that take part. Benjamin Pedersen didn't qualify, so he's the 28th. But it's a bad decision. It's a really poor decision. I don't like it. But it's classic IndyCar, isn't it? The classic race control, just sort of going like, okay, we'll penalise you, a week after the event because somebody's knocked on our door and said you've been a naughty boy. It doesn't make sense. I would much rather just let it go as a racing incident as it was. Nobody was at fault that. In that case, where's the penalty for everybody else who caused the accident as well? It's ridiculous. It's just throwing a penalty to say that we've done something, and it's a driver who actually had a decent shot at getting a good result here this weekend.
It really ruins Jack Harvey's shot of getting a good finish. Granted, it's an oval, a lot can happen, but overall, what a huge setback for him. I don't agree with this penalty. Yeah, it looked like he went a little wider than everybody, but to just say, oh, you should have backed off, fallen even further back, we know he's not having a good season. He's just trying to get to the point where he could have some good results. I just do not agree with this penalty at all, and I think this is a wrong call for IndyCar and the stewards there, and 9th place just seems really harsh. Why 9? Why didn't they just go with a full 10? And because we usually normally see 5-place grid penalties and so on, but just really tough break for Jack Harvey. A comment in the chat room about the penalty. Us old guys got to stick together, so lay off Harvey. I expect the top 10 penalty is no issue for him, and you Brits ought to be cheering for him, but not louder than me, please. So we got a Jack Harvey fan in here. Jack Harvey,
a voice.
I think as something Jackson said last week, Jack Harvey, we know he has the talent. We saw what he did at Marshank Racing. It seems when he left Marshank and Simon Pagenaud went, both of them have been cold. We don't know exactly what's going on. Adam Lemery's pointing out this is Jack Harvey's sponsors home race, so a little bit of pressure. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens with Jack Harvey. One driver, Josh, also a little bit of silly season news, is David Malukas. He said likely he may not be there with Dale Coyne Racing, but what
Yeah.
a qualifying effort. That first lap, he was sideways in turn one, still put it on the pole for a while. He's going to be starting surprisingly ninth, considering he was that loose. But then on the second
Third,
race,
isn't it? No, fourth.
second race is where he's third behind the Penske driver. So overall, a good qualifying effort. David Malukas, do you see him being one of the dark horse favorites? And do you think this is definitely an addition of teams out there, especially Ganassi and Reddy? You need to look at me. Do you think this is David Malukas making that statement?
Yes, I think it is. I think Malukas needs to go forward, and he's a good driver. He's a great driver. He's one that we always go, yeah, look at him in the races. He's going to do well. Highlight him and, keep an eye on him. He does some fantastic overtakes. He does some fantastic race strategy planning as well. He's a driver that's on the up. He's led a lot in the 2 years he's been in. So, yeah, I think this is now his time in the next couple of races. If he's not going to be Dale Coyne Racing, which is a really big surprise to us all, basically put out your little for sale sign and see what's going to happen. I think he'll get picked up by Andretti. If Grosjean is going, it makes sense for them to put Malukas in, just get him out of. Well, Grosjean's going somewhere. I think Grosjean's off to Audi as well. Is what I mean. He's off. Where is he? He's in the weather. He's in IMSA, isn't he, at the moment? In a Lamborghini, but I believe I've been hearing him into the Audi seat as 2026. But that's too old. That'd be what? 15 years since he's debuting. No, more than that, 2009, wasn't it? So, about what, 16, 17 years since he's debuted in Formula One? That's too old for F1 these days.
He's been around a while. It would be real. Dave Malukas, if he gets that DHL 28 seat, that's going to be huge for his career. I'm always curious about what's going to happen with Ganassi and with Palou and with McLaren in there in the picture. If I was Palou looking at McLaren right now, I would just be thinking, maybe I got something going better with Chip Ganassi Racing, because four in a row, and he could have easily done 5, maybe even 6 in a row. What a drive. We got upright Fossil. Grosjean is toast, but he was at IMSA Lambo holding his own and not crashing. Joshua, when it comes to, I know you've been away for a while, Alex Palou, his winning streak, his dominance, second in the grid ranking, just showing how strong he is this year. Your thoughts on the championship? Is it a situation where he has one hand on the championship and it's just about over?
No, it's never over. Especially in IndyCar, it's never over. I think he's got one hand on it, certainly. I think he's going to have a great run to the end of the season. But there's so many races coming up where in the past he hasn't done very well at. So I'm still holding hope we're going to have a good run to the end of the season. But let's just say, this is a driver who, during this winter break, signed for McLaren, was taken to court, was made to stay with Chip Ganassi Racing, has had a dominant season, and has won, as you say, was it 4 in a row, nearly 5? And he could have been in a McLaren. A McLaren that this year has been underperforming massively. So it's a really strange twist of the arm, isn't it? And if I was Palou, who has still got a contract with McLaren, I'd be going, what contract? No. I'm not here. You don't see me. I'm Chip Ganassi. Look, it says on my race suit. It says here, look on my belt. Look, big photo of Chip on the back of my shirt. I'm full on. He's going to be hiding, isn't he? He doesn't want to go to McLaren anymore. He wants to stay at Chip Ganassi Racing, and I think it was the right decision. We said at the time, it was weird that Palou signed with McLaren, because McLaren over the winter had 15 high-tier drivers lined up for the F1 seat. Nobody could actually work out what was going on. 7 of which were in lawsuits because they were breach of contract. So yeah, it does good that Palou stay where he is.
Yeah, I think it would be best for Palou. One of the big things, especially, we're seeing Oscar Piastri, Lando Norris, they're performing well. I don't see one of them losing their seats for Palou. Do you really want to be a test reserve driver role and sit on the sideline? It's going to be really interesting to see what happens. Upright Fossil. Hopefully, we have a ready women driver blow some doors off, and voila, an open seat. Yes, yes, yes. Very interesting. Last race weekend, discussion of Jamie Chadwick. She has that DHL sponsorship. Could she be primed for that seat? I think most of us agree just too early right now. It's only her
Not
first
ready yet.
season in Indy next. Definitely don't seem to want to rush her progress. Now, of course, Josh, we know you're in a little bit of a rush. You got a busy race weekend for your channel. So it's time for everyone's somewhat favorite game, especially if you're up towards the front. Pick a winner.
What?
It's Kobe's favorite game. I don't know how he seems to do this every year. He had a great weekend. At least I got Ryan Newman right. Alex got Ryan Newman right. So we're slowly catching up. Matthew Bro got Ryan Newman right. So, Josh, for your pick of winners, we got Formula One, two IndyCar races, the NASCAR Cup Series. Who do you predict for each of those races?
Let's start off with IndyCar because it'll be easier. IndyCar, I'll predict Power to win race 1, and I predict Newgarden to win race 2. So Penske domination, as we said earlier. For NASCAR, Kyle Larson. Yeah. Trying to think now as well what we're going to go for with Formula One, the hardest of the lot to navigate this weekend, which is really weird, isn't it? Do you go safe or do you go bold? Lando Norris will win.
Wow.
I can't see Hamilton and Verstappen getting out of turn 1 alive by themselves. They'll be off in the wall, upside down, whatever. And Lando is going to win. Lando will win. That's my prediction anyway. I hope so. It's a track that gifts you your first win. Give it to Lando.
It's going to be really interesting to see what happens. A big thank you to Joshua for his time as always, because we encourage everyone, be sure to check out his channel, link in the video description, or to watch on a lot of fun. Joshua, thank you so much. Isha,
Pleasure.
one of the last races we have for the weekend, NASCAR Cup Series at Pocono.
Yeah, so looking at NASCAR now, the Pocono Raceway will be hosting its One Cup Series weekend of the year, and highpoint.com 400 will start at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time this Sunday. And, last year we had a controversial finish where Denny Hamlin and Kyle Busch were both disqualified, and Chase Elliott came out top. He won. It was his last win before the playoffs. And after Pocono, there was one win at Talladega in the 2022 playoffs. So, Joe, I've got a question for you now. Do you believe Chase Elliott will be one of the favorites to win?
As much of his fans will be thinking he's a favorite to win, I just don't see that, to be honest. Last year, he got the win because Denny Hamlin, we thought he had gotten the race win. We thought Kyle Busch was in second place. Nope. They were both disqualified. Chase Elliott got that win. And since that win, he's had some strong races here and there. As you mentioned, he won the playoff race at Talladega, which we all know is a little bit of luck and at the same time being the right place at the right time. I just do not see Chase Elliott being one of the 5 favorites coming into this race weekend. We have 8 past winners here. I think you're going to see one of them. If you are looking at somebody else winning, that's not, I don't think, going to be a big issue for Chase because he is in good equipment. But overall, I just don't see him being capable of going out there, leading, winning the race. He could prove us all wrong and come out with a strong car, especially if some of the drivers that we saw running up towards the front last year have bad days. The big key will be qualifying. If Chase Elliott qualifies in the top 10, I think he's going to have a really good race weekend. But if he's outside the top 10, I think he's going to be chasing. We know this track is getting very tricky. That middle corner, the tunnel corner, people have been complaining about that bump getting bigger and bigger. I think it's going to be really one of those races where we're going to see either very few cautions or a lot of cautions. Chase Elliott, his big thing, get a good qualifying effort, stay up front, and we have little to no cautions. I think he could be a potential chance, but I'm not going to be using him as my pick a winner pick.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you about Chase Elliott. And, as you said, we do have 8 past winners racing this weekend, and 4 of them have already been to victory lane this year. We have Ryan Blaney, Kyle Busch, Denny Hamlin, and Martin Truex Jr. all have won this year. However, Alex Bowman, Chris Buescher, Chase Elliott, and Kevin Harvick have yet to win this year. So I've got another question for you, Joe. Do you think we will see a different winner at Pocono?
seeing those 8 drivers that have won here, I think I'm going to be looking at one of those 8, particularly with the drivers that have gotten wins already. Denny Hamlin, Martin Truex Jr., they both been having pretty good seasons overall. Truex, he will love to make a back-to-back race weekend, win in Loudon, and then winning here. He's from this region. I think that'll be a huge boost of momentum and confidence for that team that we could go out there and win this race. And the thing, too, we mentioned about last weekend, when Martin Truex Jr. goes out there and gets a race win, he seems to just dominate that race weekend. This is a track where he could easily go out there and dominate, especially if we have long green flag runs. If he has a fast car, he's going to be unbeatable. For the other drivers that have not won here, I think this is just one of those tracks. Get in that mindset. Let's get stage points. It's a big enough track where you could, if you're running far up towards the front, pit right before we hit the 2 laps to go at the end of the stage, get fresh tires, position yourself for that second stage or that final stage, and sacrifice the stage points. I think that's going to be a very key component of strategy this weekend, and especially if you're winless here and winless this season. So overall, I think it's going to be really interesting to see how the strategy works out, and especially cautions. I think that's going to be the big one. A lot of cautions will throw teams off. We got a straightforward race. I anticipate Martin Truex Jr. to be one of the favorites out there and be keeping that list at just 8 past winners leaving this weekend.
Yeah, definitely. And the playoff picture for the final spots is heating up. We have Bubba Wallace and McDowell just above the cut line ahead of Suarez, and there's less than 5 points between the three of them. And then we have AJ Allmendinger 20 points behind, and then Ty Gibbs and Alex Bowman each 40 points behind. And if anyone else wins, that does change with everyone shifting down a position. So here's another question. With so few races remaining, should more aggressive strategies be enacted to get the win?
Easily, especially if you're going to be one of these drivers on that bubble. We know we have some big races where you could get a surprise winner. The Indianapolis Road Course, Watkins Glen, Daytona. You only got Richmond and Michigan after this race weekend. I think it's going to be one of those events where this is really you're in control. If I'm Bubba Wallace, I'm willing to give up stage points, pit with 2 laps to go in that second stage, position yourself to win and be up front because we know passing here is still going to be very hard, very difficult for everybody. If you're Ty Gibbs, you're going to be looking at doing the same thing too. You're going to be really reliant on your teammates for help as well too when it comes to the setup. They all have wins already. They're all in the playoffs. This gives a good opportunity for him to get into the playoffs as well. AJ Allmendinger, I feel you might be wanting to say wait till the road courses, but I don't think you can. The road courses, they're very unpredictable. Indianapolis, we know that could be one of those road courses where it might be calm for the first 2 stages, but that third stage, it's going to be a caution after caution after caution. Position yourself with an aggressive call. Because at the end, especially if you pit before the end of stage 2, get that track position for stage 3, you're up front. You have the track position. Hit your marks on those restarts. Pull away. Because I anticipate stage 3, we're going to have very few cautions. But once we hit 20 laps to go, if there's any caution following that, comes down to your pit stops. If you're up front, your pit crew could keep you up there. That's great. If you lose one position, but you're second or third, you're still in the top 5, hopefully in the top 10. This is going to be a very big race for those teams. The big thing, position yourself for the win, because if you don't, Michigan is going to be the one last race where you're in full control. Then you got the road courses and Daytona, and you might be regretting not going for a more bold move at Pocono Raceway. And of course, that race, after it wraps up, we're going to be on the Aero Grid tomorrow with Grid Live wrap up right here on the Grid Network. One of the first races that will wrap up this weekend will be World Rally Championship, and it looks like it is starting to get to that point. Stage 15, 16, and 17 will conclude today's action, and then we have a few more stages tomorrow. Elfyn Evans led the Rally Estonia at the end of day 1, but his teammate Kalle Rovanperä ended day 2 with the lead, and he is looking at doing the same today. Thierry Neuville, the leading Hyundai, trying to make it close, but it looks like it's going to be all Toyotas towards the front, and Ott Tanak, the hometown favorite, the home country favorite for this race, An engine penalty, 5-second deficit from the get-go. Been trying everything he can. Stage 2 in the morning half, he was flying. But when the rain showed up, it started falling back. Tanak, unfortunately, was my pick a winner. Don't think he's going to get it done. Isha, of course, as I mentioned, pick a winner. That's the next thing we got to talk about. And of course, Formula One, that's going to be kicking off tomorrow's race weekend. So taking a look at the pick a winner standing, we know you were able to get on the board on your first race weekend. When it comes to Formula One, who do you see winning the Hungarian Ring and the Hungarian Grand Prix?
Last time when I was on the show for Silverstone, there was a very obvious winner that I went with so I could win points. But I feel like with the Hungarian Grand Prix, it's just you can't really pick any one guy and expect to win as well as you could with Silverstone. So I think I'm going to go with the bold choice here, and I'm going to choose one of my favorite teams, McLaren's Lando Norris, to take pole tomorrow. And I just think that they've had the best pace so far in the practice sessions and then in the qualifying that we've seen when looking at the top three. So I think I'm going to go with Lando Norris on this one.
Surprise, surprise. I'm going to make this unanimous. I'm going with Lando Norris as well, too. I know Joshua went with Lando Norris because, as he said, Max Verstappen, the easy pick. This track with the history of first-time race winners, the history of that team, he's third place. I got the confidence in that team to put Lando in a winning position. If he could be second place at the end of lap one, I think he could really bring the challenge to that Mercedes. I don't think the Mercedes has the full race pace. Lando Norris, my surprise pick for the Formula One. Pick a winner. We encourage everyone to comment who you think is going to win Formula One. IndyCar, we have 2 races there, and of course, NASCAR Cup Series. For IndyCar, race 1, I'm going to go with a Penske, but I'm going to go with Scott McLaughlin. He has shown a lot of pace. He was fast at Texas Motor Speedway. I think that team just to be seen on another level compared to Will Power and especially Joseph Newgarden, who Joseph Newgarden, it seems, is hit or miss. Race 1, he can have a strong run, but race 2, a little bit of rougher starting position. I think he's going to have to get some work done, but that is not going to eliminate him. Race 2, I'm going to go with Joseph Newgarden. I think he could get up, he's motivated. He'll take the notes from race 1, apply to race 2. We know he's fast at this track. Joseph Newgarden for race number 2. NASCAR Cup Series at Pocono. This one, I'm going with Martin Truex Jr. I feel that team loves the races where they could go out there, dominate. This is a track that traditionally, the last few years, most of the time we've seen over 5 caution flags, but we've had some instances of 4 and only 3 cautions. I think they can control this race. The big thing is the last part of the race when we hit 25, 20 laps to go. If we get a caution, that could derail everything. But I'm betting on Martin Truex Jr. to get the win at Pocono, the highpoint400.com. So overall, big race weekend. A couple comments in the chat room. Amanda Kaufman is going with Max Verstappen, Joseph Newgarden, Will Power, and Denny Hamlin. Thank you so much, Amanda, for tuning in. And of course, definitely we thank all our viewers for tuning in to the Grid Network right here on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe to us right here on YouTube. Hit the bell icon so you don't miss any of our programs, including tomorrow's show, where we recap everything on Grid Life Wrap Up. Monday, Grid Encore. They're going to be recapping Indy NXT, all the feeder series going on throughout the weekend. Ben and Brandon will be on the air. And a big thank you to our Patreon subscribers. Call the show Mark, Robin, and Davis for investing in the Grid Network each and every month. And our Patreon subscribers as well. Buy me a cup of coffee, folks, who has bought us a cup of coffee, including for our folks on the Grid Network team. Really, really appreciate all the support. And big thing is, be sure to subscribe to us right here on the Grid Network. Last comment before we go out there. Truex back-to-back. Bold, very bold. It hasn't been done for a while, but I think I could just almost see the headline, Truex, the Northeastern driver, getting this done in the Northeast, almost a Northeast sweep. In fact, it would be because he did get Dover, so that's going to be really something very interesting to see what happens in the NASCAR series. For Isha Azim and Joshua Birch, I'm Joe San Diego. Thank you for watching today's program. We'll see you next time and enjoy the races.
Thank you for watching us right here on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe and check out some of our other videos, including Life on the Grid, where we interview folks from the motorsports industry. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.